Welcome back to the channel. Today we will be playing a Mobile Suit Gundam game. This is a fan-made set of rules called Mechastellar. So this will be mostly a learning game. I played it once before, but we're going to try it again. We're going to put it on camera. So, I'll be putting the rules, or the link to the rules, in the description. So this will be just a straight up fight between the Zeon and the Earth Federation. And so with that, we'll go ahead and take a look at the units. So starting off with the Zeon side, this will be a force led by Char in his Zaku 2. And he has a bazooka and his Heat Hawk, followed by 3 Zaku 2s with machine guns and Heat Hawks. They are basic level 0 pilots, while Char is a level 2 ace pilot. He has some abilities that will help him in combat as well. I'll explain those as we play. So, moving on to the Federation. Alright, and here's the Federation side. This will be led by a Gundam G, and the pilot is Karen Joshua. He is a skilled pilot, so a level 1. And then the rest of his units, we have 2 GM ground types with machine guns and a shield. And beam saber, and then 2 GM cannons with artillery cannon, beam spray gun, and a shield. Also, Karen Joshua has the beam rifle, small shield, and a beam saber. So, with that, we'll go ahead and deploy and get ready for round 1. Alright, we've deployed our units. For the Zeon side, I've got 2 Zakus on my right flank, and then Char and another Zaku on the left, hiding behind some rocks. And then for the Federation side, she's got a ground type and the gun cannon on the left, Karen Joshua in the middle, and then the other 2 on the right flank. So, with that, we'll go ahead and roll for initiative and see who goes first. 2 and a 5 for Earth Federation go first. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Alright, first turn, she activated the GM gun cannon, so it moved 9 inches. And then in this game, each unit has 1 action. So she's decided for her action to shoot. And normally you'd have to shoot at the closest visible enemy unit. But she could not see any of her units, or any of my units. So she got to pick who to shoot at with her indirect weapon. So she had 4 shots with the artillery cannon. But when you're shooting indirectly, it is a -1 shot. So her 4 shots become 3. So, and she's decided to shoot at my second Zaku. And how shooting works in this game is she doesn't roll to hit anybody. I have to roll to evade the shots. So, she's got 3 shots on me. And then her shooting is a 9. And so now I compare that with my evade. My evade is a +4. So I will roll 3 dice for 3 shots and add that +4. And if I meet or exceed a 9, I dodge the attack. So that's a 9, so I dodged 2 attacks. Which means I now take 2 hits. What's the damage for the artillery cannon?
It's 500 damage.
500 each?
Yes.
So that's 1,000 damage.
At least I think so.
Oof. Okay, what's the penetration on that?
1.
1. So I won't have to make any armor saves, but I will take 1,000 damage. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and spend a momentum on defense. So momentum is kind of like a CP or command point if you played 40k or any other games like that. And I have 3 starting momentum. So I'm going to spend 1 momentum to negate one of those shots. So I only take 1 damage, or 1 hit for 500, you said?
Yeah.
Alright, so my Zaku here takes 500 damage, bringing him to 800 hit points left. So with that, we'll move on to my turn. Alrighty, so on my turn, I had to activate the Zaku 2 that got shot, because in this game, whoever was shot has to activate next and then return fire. But I was out of range, so I just moved up and used my action to full throttle and move up another 5 inches behind the rocks for cover. And then she went ahead and activated next. She activated Karen Joshua over here, who moved onto that rock and then is now shooting at my Zaku, as it is the closest available target. I think he can ignore it though, because he's a skilled pilot. I'll have to double check on that. But anyways, he shot at me, so 4 shots. His shooting is a 10, so I'll need 6 or less, or 6 or higher. So I got 3 blocks, or 3 evades, and then Joshua's skill is a +1 to hit against level 0 to 1 pilots. So he gets an additional hit. But since I'm behind cover, I get 2 blocks against damage 300 weapons, which the beam rifle is. So I block both of those shots and I don't take any damage. Moving on to Xeon. Alright, so for my turn, I activated Shar. So he moves 13 inches, but with his command trait that I gave him, it gives him an additional 5 inches. So he moved all the way up to behind this rock, and then he's going to take a shot at Joshua over here. And his ability is Commando, which means I can only target him if he's the closest visible target, which fortunately I was. And then also for Shar, he has the Red Comet trait, which allows him to gain a +1 momentum or a +1 action. So I went with the action instead, and I chose to focus. And the focus ability I chose, there's a list of them, but I chose to give him a +1 shot. So instead of 3 shots with the bazooka, he's making 4. So she's going to now try to evade. Her evasion is a 3, correct?
Yes.
And my shooting is a 9, so she needs a 6+. And she got them all. So she evaded all the shots. So with that, we'll move on to the Federation. Alright, so for the rest of the round, most of the units just moved forward and used full throttle. I got my other Zaku behind this rock. This one moved up. The rest of her units moved up. And then her last unit was the gun cannon, which moved up and is now going to shoot at my damaged Zaku over here. So 4 shots. This is not indirect, so it'll be 4 shots. Shooting 9. My evasion is a 4. Ooh. Oh no, that's really bad. So I failed all 4 of those. And then ones are criticals, which is twice the damage. And it's what? Damage 500?
Yeah.
So I don't have enough momentum to save them, so that it is immediately destroys 1 Zaku right off the rip.
Dang.
destroyed. And Xeon is not off to a good start so far. So with that, we go to round 2. Alright, starting of round 2, she activated her ground GM, which moved forward and is shooting at Char with the machine gun. So, 7 attacks. At shooting 9 with an evade of 4. So, that's 1 fail. Just 1 fail. Everything else passed. And then I have some abilities. So I am immune to blindside and high ground, which gives me a new type ability, which lets me reroll up to 1 evade or melee defense die per enemy weapon. So I get to reroll that, which is a 3, which is still a fail. And then I also have the ability 3 times as fast, which lets me reroll 3 evade dice per attack. So I'm not sure that stacks. What do you think?
You can do it.
I don't know. I already rolled the die, so I must say I'm not going to re-roll the same die multiple times. So we'll say that one hits. What's the damage? 200?
Yeah.
Okay, so I take 200 damage. Bring him down to 1100. And then Char will activate next. Alright, so Char activated, so he moved forward 3 inches. So in this game you can move, shoot, and then move again if you have any inches left over of your movement. So I moved up 3 inches to get within rapid fire range of this GM. And then I use my second action to focus, giving me an additional shot. So my rapid fire is +1. And then I got an extra shot with the focus. So I'm totaling 5 shots with the bazooka at the GM. So, and then the GM has a +1 evade. And my shooting is a 9.
So I need 8s.
Yep, so you need 8s. But you do have a shield, so you'll block at least 1 shot.
Okay.
Alright, so you blocked 2. So you block 2, and then your shield blocks another. So you just take 2 hits. So, and then that is a total of 800 damage per 2 hits, or per each hit. And then that is a penetration of 3, so you'll need to make 2 armor saves or suffer 1000 damage. So,
oh man.
What's your armor save? +1? Yep, armor save +1. So, how armor saves work for weapons that do armor penetration, like the bazooka. So it's so it's a penetration of 3 minus an armor save of 1, which brings it to 2. So all you need to do is roll 2 to pass your armor save. So roll those 2 dice. Oh, so you failed 1. So that's 1,000 damage.
Can I do a momentum?
To reroll, I believe you can. Let me double check.
Okay.
Okay, so momentums are spent on negating hits. So for the purpose of this, since she already rolled her armor save, we're going to say she couldn't use the momentum. She would have had to do it before she rolled the armor saves. So she ended up failing 1 armor save for 1,000 damage, and then another 800 damage from the regular shot, bringing that Gundam down to 300 points left.
No, just 5.
Or 500 points left. So it's still standing. But, and then, so with my extra movement, I'm going to use it to move behind the rock and get cover. And then I'll move on to the Federation's turn. Alright, so Char popped in behind the rock there for cover. And then she decided to activate her gun cannon. And she's a little salty about the damage. So she's shooting at Char with some precarious line of sight. She doesn't see any other units, so she's going to be shooting a char. And since this is indirect, it's a -1 shot, so it's just 3 shots. Shooting 9 with an evasion of 4. So I pass 1, and then I get to re-roll with my traits. And man, that's a second pass, but I failed 1, which is critical. And then it's penetration 1 as well. Was it 500 damage?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to spend a momentum to negate that. I'm not taking 1,000 damage. So I'm going to spend my momentum. And then it's back to Xeon's turn. Alright, so for my Zaku 2 over here, moved up 9 inches. And then is going to shoot at this ground GM over here that's already injured. I'm in rapid fire range, so I get an additional 3 shots for a total of 10. Shooting 9, evasion 1.
Yes.
So you need 8s to dodge. And that's a lot. So shield blocks 1. And then it's a 200 damage weapon, so it blocks another. And then the rest of these are fails. So that's 200, 400, 600, 600, 800, 1,000, 1,400 damage.
He's dead. He only has 500. So.
And you don't have enough momentum to save him. So that GM gets lit up and destroyed. And then it's back to Federation's turn. Alright, next Karen moved up forward and placed herself on a high ground, or himself on high ground, giving a +1 to the shooting accuracy, and is shooting at my Zaku. So 4 shots, shooting 11 with an evade of 4. So I need to roll high here. So those pass, and that passes as well. So I -1, or I missed 1. And then you get a +1 hit for your skill trait for 2 hits. What's the armor penetration? For the beam rifle?
6.
6. So those, I'll need to make an armor save for these. What's the damage on this?
300.
300? Okay. Or I'll take 1,000. Do I spend a momentum now? I'm going to spend 1 momentum to negate 1 of those hits. And then I'll roll an armor save. My armor save is a +0, so I need a 6. Which I don't make, so I take critical damage for 1,000 damage on my Zaku. Which brings it down to 300 hit points left. And then we move on to Xeon. Alright, so I activated my Zaku 2 over here. He's going to peek out behind the rock and shoot at the gun cannon over here. So this will be 7 shots, and with a shooting of 9 and an evasion of 1. So she needs to roll 8s to dodge.
Ooh.
And there's 1 crit, 2 crit.
Failed them all.
Alright, so you got a shield, which blocks 1. And then another shield with the 200 damage blocks that too. So you take 4 hits. 2 of them are criticals. So, how much momentum you want to spend?
Can I spend all 4?
Yeah, it's a lot of momentum. Spending all 4?
Yeah.
Okay, spending 4 momentum to negate all 4 of those hits. And then we move on. Okay, and then I got 5 inches of movement, which I'm going to use to move behind cover again. And then we'll move on to Federation's turn. Alright, there's the Zaku behind cover. And then she activated her gun cannon, which moved behind the rock. And then indirect fire into my damaged Zaku over here. So this would be 3 shots. Evasion 4, shooting 9. And I pass 2 of them. I take 1 damage, or 1 hit. What's the damage on that? 500?
Yeah.
So, I only got 300 left, so I have to spend momentum or else he dies. And I kind of need him. So I'm going to spend my last momentum to dodge that attack. And then I don't have any more units to activate, so you activate your last ground GM over here. Alright, and then so for her last GM, she full throttled and moved all the way over here onto my left flank, trying to gang up on my last Zaku on my right flank. And then that was the end of the round. So if I haven't already explained, we each get 1 momentum per round, and then an additional momentum for destroying a unit. So I destroyed that one this turn, so I am back now to 2 momentum, and she is at 2 as well. So with that, we go to round 3. Alright, started round 3. She activated her ground GM, which moved forward, and then is going to pour some machine gun fire into my Zaku here. So this will be 7 shots, shooting 9, evasion 4. So, looks like I failed 3. Yep, I failed 3. And I don't have enough momentum to save that Zaku. So that Zaku is destroyed, making me heavily outnumbered. 2 to 1. And then with that, we go to Zeon's turn. Alright, so I activated Char. He's got an 18-inch movement, and fly, so he's flying over here, getting a direct beam on the gun cannon here. And he uses second action to focus, give him an extra shot, and he's in rapid fire range. So that'll be 5 shots, shooting 9, and then you need 8s to evade.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
Made 1.
So you made 1.
I can block. What's
Yep.
the damage? 200
It's
or less?
800. So you block 1.
Okay.
So you're taking 3 hits and 1's a critical.
Can't I just block the critical one?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Well then...
At least I'm not sure. We're going to say no.
Okay, then I want to use 1 momentum to take out the critical. Can I do that?
Okay.
Alright. And then...
You take 2 hits. And that's penetration of 3, so you'll have to make an armor save. So.
Okay.
And your armor is armor save of 1, so you need to roll 2s to not take critical damage.
Sure.
Alright, you passed them, so you just take the straight 800 damage for a total of 1600 damage.
And he's dead.
Gone? Oh,
Yes.
yeah, he's only got 1300, right?
Yeah.
Why we even roll? Alright, gun cannon goes down in flames with Char back in a kill. And with that, we move on to Federation. Alright, next up, Karen Joshua activated. Seeing the smoke from his damaged partner over there, he's going to point and take a shot at Char. So it's be 4 shots with the beam rifle. He gets the high cover, or high ground, so his shooting is now 11 with my evasion of 4. So that's 2 pass, and then I get to re-roll both of those with my stats, and they both still failed. What's the damage of these? 500? 300?
300.
300. I could take it. I'm going to go ahead and spend a momentum. Do I have to spend both momentum? Can't really afford to take any damage. I'm going to spend 1 momentum to negate one of those. What's the penetration?
6.
I don't have an armor save, so I have to roll a 6 or take 1,000 damage. Okay, never mind. I'm gonna spend both my momentum. I can't afford to roll. That's
Wow.
above 50% chance.
You're scared.
That's some high damage. So I'm going to spend both of my momentum to negate both those shots. And then it's back to Zeon's turn. Alright, my turn. I just have this Zaku left, which will shoot at the Gundam over here. So it'll be 7 shots. She has an evasion of 3. So, and shooting 9. So you need a 6 or higher. So 3 passes. And then shield blocks 2 more. So you just take 2 hits. Spending any momentum?
Yeah, how much damage will he take?
200.
200?
Mm-hmm. You got plenty of health.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to spend a momentum. I think I'm
All right,
going to try to evade or block it.
You've already rolled. That was your block, dude.
Oh, okay.
There's no penetration from these.
Okay.
So, you're just going to take it?
Yeah, 400.
Alright, 400 damage to the Gundam. And then we go to Federation's turn. Alright, so Federation activated her last gun cannon unit, which moved behind cover. And then something we realize is these gun cannons actually have 2 actions, not just one. So she decided to focus, giving her an extra shot for 4 shots on Char, all the way over there. So, this is shooting 9, evade of 4. So I evaded 3 of them, and then I get a reroll, which I also evade, dodging all of those shots. And then that is the end of round 4. Alright, start of round 4, not round 5. So she activated Karen Joshua over here, and he is going to be shooting at Char. So this will be 4 shots, and then this will be shooting 11, evade 4. So I dodged 1, and then I get to re-roll all 3 of those. Oof. That's a 10. Okay, so I dodged 1 more, and I take 2 hits, and one of them's a crit. And I'm going to go ahead and spend my momentum. Both my just received momentum to get rid of that. Both of those. Not taking any damage. I'm not risking that high penetration damage. So with that, we go to Zeon's turn. Alright, so I activated Char. So he's moving forward. Get within rapid fire range of the Gundam here. And he decided to take an extra momentum instead of an action. So it's just 4 shots coming at the Gundam. And then because I activated a return fire, because he shot at me, and I'm returning fire, I get a +1 hit this turn. So I've already got 1 hit on the Gundam. And then you got to roll 4 evades with evade 3.
6s or higher.
Yep. So you made 1, and then your shield blocks 1, and then I already gave you 1 hit. So you're taking 3 hits.
Okay.
Spend any momentum?
Yeah.
How much?
How much damage does he do to me?
It's 800 damage with an armor penetration.
So if I do 2 and try...
You'll need to roll a 2 to not take critical damage.
2 or higher?
Yep.
I think I can do that. We'll take away 2 now.
Alright, spend a 2 momentum. Bring you down to 1.
Yes.
Alright, and then an armor save of 2.
Alright.
Alright, you pass, so you just take 800 damage instead. And then I'm going to use the remaining movement to move behind cover. Alright, there's Char behind the rock, taking cover. And then on the Federation side, she activated her gun cannon. which is taking a focus for an extra shot, and then shooting indirectly at my Zaku 2 over here. So this will be 4 shots, shooting 9, evade 4. Ooh.
Those look high.
Yep, I evaded all of them. Alright, no hits, and then we move on to my Zaku's turn. Alright, so the Zaku 2 is going to peek out and shoot at her gun cannon that moved up on the high ground. So this will be 7 shots. Evade of... what we got?
1.
Evade of 1, shooting 9. These roll 8s.
Oof.
Ooh, and there's some crits there. So you evaded 2 of them, and then your shield blocks 2.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And then spend any momentum.
I'm going to spend my last one to take out one of these crits.
Okay. So you take 600 damage.
Oof.
Alright, what are we on left?
Where's he at?
600. Alright, so 700 left on that gun cannon. Alright, and then with my remaining movement, we're just gonna pop back behind cover. And then it's back to Federation's turn. Alright, then the remaining GM just moved up on the hill and then full throttled to get some more movement up on the hill since she didn't have line of sight on the Zaku. Which brings us at the end of round 4, moving on to round 5. Alright, starting off round 5, she's chosen the gun cannon, which will indirect fire at my Zaku over here. And she did focus for an additional shot, so it's 4 shots, shooting 9, evade 4. That's, I evaded 3 of them, and then I take 1 damage. How much damage is it?
That's 300. Oh, shoot.
No.
It's 500.
500. Do I spend momentum while I have it? Yes, I'm going to spend momentum. 1 momentum to negate that. Not taking any damage. And then we move on to the Zeon's turn. Alright, activated the Zaku because he got shot at, so in which he then shoots back at the gun cannon. So 7 shots. Evasion of +1, so she needs 8 to evade. Ooh, a lot of 1s there and nothing. So you block 2 of them with the shield. Not the crits. And then you take 5 hits. Spending any momentum. Got 1 left.
If I do that, then
Yep.
that's
So
4, and he'd probably still die, right?
that's 400, 800. Yeah, I think he's dead no matter what, so I wouldn't even bother spending the momentum. So, machine gun fire takes out this Gundam. So, for rules purposes, it doesn't explicitly say the blocks. You can, it doesn't say you can choose which die you block. But we're just going to say, because it's a critical hit, the shield can't block a critical hit. So, that is why we took out those ones. So, with that, the gun cannon gets taken out, bringing it to 2 mobile suits against 2. I have now evened the odds. And then my last movement, I'm going to tuck back behind cover, bringing us back to Federation's turn. Alright, so Gundam activated. It full throttled all the way up to the rock since it didn't have line of sight on Char. And then I activated Char, who moved 8 inches over here. Got in rapid fire range of the Gundam, so this is 5 shots. Evade 3. I did focus, so to give me an extra shot, so 5 shots. Evasion of 3, and shooting 9, so 6s. So that's 1, 2 blocks, and then the shield blocks another, giving you 1 crit and 1 regular hit.
I want to take out the crit.
Alright, spending momentum to get rid of that. And then a 2-up armor save for 800 damage.
Okay.
Got it. So you just take 800. What's he down to? Ooh, he's only down to 1,300 points. So I've evened the score a little bit. And then I'm going to use the rest of my movement to get away from that Gundam. Alright, next up she activated the GM. And it's going to shoot its machine gun at my Zaku, who gets cover. So this will be 2 blocks guaranteed. But she does have high ground, giving her shooting 10. My evade of 4. 7 shots. And then evade of 10, right? So actually misses. So and then 2 blocks. So I take 1 crit for 400 damage. Bringing me down to 900 damage on that Zaku. And then I think that's it, right?
Yep.
Which brings us to round 6. Alright, top of round 6, the GM moved forward and is going to shoot at Char. So it's going to be 7 shots, evasion of 4. So I failed 3. 1's a crit, so I'm going to re-roll the evade, my trait. And I pass 2 more. So I take 200 damage, bringing me down to 900 left. And then it's on to Zeon's turn. Alright, next up I activated Char, who moved forward a little bit to get in rapid fire of the Gundam. So as he's a ace pilot, he ignores the return fire rule. So he's decided to shoot the Gundam. So this will be, and he, for his second action, he chose to focus. So this will be 5 shots, shooting 9, evasion of 3. So you need 6s or higher. So you made 2, and then your shield blocks 1 more.
Okay.
So you take 2 hits.
Then I'm going to do a momentum.
Alright, spending a momentum to block 1 more. So you just take 1 for 800 damage, and then an armor save. 2-up armor save. Which you made. So you just take the 800. Bringing you down to 500 hit points left.
Cool.
Getting close. And then I'm going to use the rest of my movement to hide, if I can. Alright, next up, she just had the Gundam activate, which moved forward and could see Char. So this will be 4 shots. I will get cover for this. So, shooting 10, evade 4. I pass 2, and then I get to re-roll 2 evades, which I pass both of those. So I am just dodging your shots left and right.
You're running away.
That's right. And then it is just my Zaku, right? Yep. Alright. Alright, so I activated my Zaku, and he moved forward, seeing that the Gundam is damaged significantly. He sees his chance for glory, so he's going in, being risky, getting out of cover, and is going to try and take him out. So this will be 10 shots, rapid fire range. Evasion of 3, shooting 9. So you need 6s. And you're out of momentum. I see quite a few here.
Oh, wow.
Oh, would you look at that. And your shield will block both of those. So, the Gundam doesn't take any damage. Oh no, that's not good. Alright, and then that is the end of round 6, taking us to round 7 with Federation with the initiative. Alrighty, so on to round 7. She activated the Gundam first, and it moved into engagement range of my Zaku 2, who is left stunned after missing all of his shots. So, how melee works is, so you have a dice pool, which you decide, you decide which ones are going to be attacks and which one are going to be defense. So she's got 7 attack dice, which she applied 4 of them to the attack and 3 of them to defense. And then I got 5 for mine, so I applied 3 for defense and 2 for attack. So she decided to focus since melee is a free action, giving her +1 to hit already. The rules state it gives you a +1 to hit, and I interpret that as just an automatic hit. I'm not sure, I could be wrong on that, but that's how we're going to play it for now. So she's going to roll 4 dice for attack, and she needs 5s to hit. So go ahead and roll. Alright, so everything hits, and then she already gets 1 hit for the focus. And then I need 5s to defend, which I defended 1. So I take 4 hits from the beam saber. How much damage? And that's 300 apiece?
Yep, beam saber 300.
Alright, and I only have 900 left, so that Zaku gets cut down, leaving me with 1 unit remaining. On to Char's turn. Let's see if he can win. Alright, so next up I activated Char. So he moved behind cover, or out of cover, getting direct line of sight on the Gundam. And he's going to focus, giving him 4 shots, and then a rapid fire gives him an additional shot. For 5 shots with the bazooka into the Gundam. So evade of 3. She needs a 6 to evade. And that's evaded all of them with a block with the shield. Blocks all the shots. Invaded. So Char doesn't get any hits. Then he's going to move behind cover. Alright, so Char went behind the rock there, and then it was just the GM, which full throttled forward as they close in on Char, which brings us to the next round, which will be Federation's turn. Alright, so she went with the GM, which full throttled over the terrain and got engagement range with Char, so they're going to engage in melee combat. So she's got 5 dice. She's denoted 3 of them for melee and 2 for defense. I also did 3 for defense and 2 for melee. So roll to hit. Need 5s. Got 2 hits. Alright. And then I got 3 defense die. Just needing 5s here. So I made 1, and then I get to re-roll 2 of them with my evade skill. So I take 1.
That applies to melee?
Yes. So I take 1 hit. What's the damage with the beam saber?
It is 300.
So 300 and penetration?
8.
8. So 600 damage. I'll spend momentum to block it. Alright, and then I got 2 melee to strike back. Needing 5s. I got 1. And then you need a 5 to defend. Roll 2.
Roll 2? Oh.
Just in case. But you made it. So you blocked. Alright. And then it is now my turn. Alright, on Char's turn, I spent 2 momentum to disengage and to shoot. So, this will be 4 shots with the bazooka coming at your Gundam. With an evade of 1, you need 8s. Nope.
Nothing.
And then that is 800 damage apiece. So that Gundam is toast. And then, right?
Does he block?
Oh, you do block 1 with a shield.
Blocks.
How much health does he got left?
He has full health.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, 2,300.
Okay. So that's 2,400.
Okay.
That would kill him. So that Gundam gets taken out. And then I'll use the remaining movement to get behind cover. Just running away. That's all I can do. Alright, so for the last unit, the Gundam activated, full throttled forward. And then we went to the next round, which he then full throttled again into engagement range for a free melee action on Char. So, I decided to go all defense for 5 dice, and she is using 7 dice for her attack, and she's putting them all into offense. So she needs 5s to hit. So we got 3 hits. Alright, 3 hits.
Fails.
4 fails, alright. So I got 5 dice to defend. I just need to make 3 of these. So there's 2, and then I get to re-roll up to 3 of these. Which I failed 3. So I take one failure. So I can either spend a momentum to negate it. So, or I can just risk the armor penetration. Alright, so we're just gonna, I need the momentum to get out and shoot, because I won't fight it, I won't win another round in combat, will I? How much health you got left? You know what, alright.
500.
We're gonna spend a momentum to negate that one. So, no damage to Char. And that brings us to my turn. So I am going to, I'm in engagement range, so I'm just going to be fighting, and I'm going to focus, give me a +1 hit. And then I'm going all out. So I'm doing 5 to attack. What are you doing to defense and attack?
Mine would be like 7, so I get to choose, right?
Yep.
You said you're going all out?
Yep.
That's 5. You know what? I'll do 5 in defense and 2 in attack.
Okay. Alright, needing 5 to hit. I got 4.
Okay.
Alright. And those 3 of those are crits. And then block. For 5s, you blocked 4. And then I had additional hit with the focus. So that gives me 4 or 5.
Does my shield help at all?
Yes, it does. Is that a hit as well? You rolled 4 hits or 4 blocks?
Yeah.
Okay, so and your shield blocks 1 as well. So you block all the hits, and then now it's time for you to attack with your 2. You need 5s to hit. Got 1 of them. So that'll be 300 damage to me, leaving me with 600. And I need to roll an 8 or take critical damage for 1,000 instead. Nope. And with that, Char gets taken out by the Gundam in melee combat for a Federation victory. Thanks for watching, guys.